Hello and welcome to a special program brought to you live from here in New York. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of Greg Johnson Partnerships International, whose purpose has become uniting the world in family caregiving. Now, yesterday, I had the great privilege of doing a workshop via the online method for the Peconic Bay Medical Center. That's out on the end of Long Island in Riverhead, an incredible institution. And it was thanks to two very dear friends of mine, Emily Roy Corey and her husband, Mike Corey, who have been great patrons of the hospital since they moved to Riverhead as their primary residence. And a number of years ago, I guess it's now probably close to 10 years ago, I had the privilege of doing the opening program for the Caregiver Center, which was sponsored by many persons, including the Coreys. And I have watched this incredible experience in having a caregiving center within a major hospital. And I've had the fun of watching Dr. Tara Anglim, who has been the director. Tara is an incredibly talented woman and has an incredibly wonderful staff. And Megan and Christy and Vinny yesterday did a program and hosted it. And I had so much fun doing it. And when it was over, I asked if it had been recorded. I hadn't thought about that naturally. And unfortunately, there was a problem with the mechanics for that. So I decided, just as a thank you gift to them and also for us to have it, I would redo the program. So we're pretending that we're going to this workshop together. And I want to share it because I entitled the workshop Family Caregiving versus Cure Giving. It's a topic that I've spoken on many times, but not quite in the same context as we're going to do it today. So I wanted to have a chance to put it on tape so that you and future generations, I'm very aware of that, that future generations can take and move on to the next steps because there are next steps. When I began, no one talked about family caregiving. And in fact, that's where I'm going to begin. Many people have asked me, how did you get involved in family caregiving? Well, the truth of the matter is, about nearly 30 years ago, in 1999, the Reverend Dr. Carl Flemister, a very dear friend of mine, now passed, but Carl and I were great friends, and he had been in professional life as a minister, the head of the denomination of the Baptists here in the Northeast. And Carl and I would often have lunch and we would talk about projects we were doing. I had done some work in international tourism and he had been very active with that. In fact, he and his wonderful wife journeyed with me one time for a project when Singapore Airlines was one of my clients. That goes back a long time, but we remained dear friends. And at one lunch that we had together, and this was in 1999, Carl began saying to me, well, we're doing something very interesting because he had become the chairman of the foundation at HIP, which is now Emblem Health here in New York, an incredible organization. And Carl said to me, we're doing something new. I want to share it with you, Greg. And he said, there's always been a great deal of focus on the care recipients and certainly on the professional caregivers, doctors, nurses, all of these folks. But he said too little attention has been paid to the family caregivers who for too long have been the silent patients. And I said, Carl, this is wonderful. And I was very excited about it from a point of view of supporting him. And then he looked at me and he said, no, Greg, I want you to create it. And I said, Carl, you know my background. It's theater, theology, and international tourism. I know nothing about insurance, and I know very little about healthcare. He said, that we understand. But he said, your passion for people, he said, I think it makes you the right person to take on this. And I said, well, I'm deeply honored. And I said, there is one point that makes me want to jump at this opportunity. I said, you know, Carl, as a minister, and both as a minister of music and an ordained interfaith minister, there is something that has always caught my attention, and that is the fact that in truth, I have buried more caregivers than care recipients. And it strikes me that the project that you and Emblem Health are creating could be a way to contribute to changing that story. And if I can just help a few people to do it, count me in. Well, that's where it began. And little did I know it was to become my international ministry. And we've just come back from doing a project again in Singapore, I mean, in Indonesia this time. And it has taken off incredibly. The Sahaja Foundation, Bali, using family caregiving to bring healthcare into the villages. We've talked about that in other programs, and so I'm not going to go into it here. But family caregiving has become my ministry. And I am forever grateful to Carl for that conversation and to Emblem Health for providing the platform that allowed me to create. And it was actually in that portion of my life that I came to know Emily Roy Corey, who herself, a wonderful social worker, very active in many of the organizations for healthcare. And that's where our friendship began. So it was marvelous to be with the Peconic Bay Medical Center, and they're incredible. And I encourage you to look up their work and their Facebook site, the Caregiving Center. Now, before I begin, I just want to, as always, level the playing field because I believe this is going to be used by people who may not have heard me speak before. And when we're talking about family caregiving, it's very important that we are all using the same terms because we use the same terms, but we have to understand what's being said and meant by those terms. So, first of all, family caregiving. Two simple words. Family. We all have a family of origin, but we also have a family of choice. Today, as we are gathered, whoever is listening to this broadcast, you are part of a family of choice because you chose to listen to this broadcast. You chose to be part of this conversation. And all of us, every single one of us, have families of choice. We have our birth family, yes, that's the family of origin, but we also have families of choice. They can be faith centers, they can be senior centers, they can be political organizations, they can be a knitting club, they can be any sort of professional organization. They can be a BRG or an ERG, business related group or employee resource group within a corporation. We are corporate families. So we have many families in which we interact with people and we learn to care for them, and they become family to us and we become family to them. So we're using both terms. And the second word, and I might add, I always like to put this in here because I want you to know it. Many of you are family caregivers, just as I am. But there are times when people say to us, so what's a family caregiver? They get quite confused. They think it's only caregivers who are paid, and they're wonderful persons, but they are the professional caregivers. We'll get to that in a moment. But what is a family caregiver? Now, there are two definitions that I adore because they're short and they're to the point, and they came from my beloved mentor, the Dr. Carol Levine from United Hospital Fund, now retired. But Carol had her first book really was the best definition of family caregiving, the title of it, and the title was Always on Call. Doesn't that hit it right? Absolutely. A family caregiver is someone who is always on call. And as I say, the calls never come between 9 and 5 when you can get help. So the challenges are there. But another definition that Carol has given us, and it's really a very fine definition, it's two parts, but it is very accurate. What is a family caregiver? It's someone who shows up. Now, that's the easy part. and stays to help. Someone who shows up and stays to help, stays the journey. Those are two good terms, and they very succinctly define what a family caregiver is, whether it's family of origin or family of choice. Now, the second and the other part that I want to share with us is caregiver, family caregiver. And we're going to get back to that in one moment. But as an introduction to that word, which is the focus of this talk, of this part of the workshop, I want us to take a quick look at what are the healthcare systems of the world. Now, I'm not giving you an academic conversation, but healthcare, and wherever in the world I travel, I am always, always impressed that the reality of these three legs appear. Yes, healthcare can be very simply put as a three-legged stool. If it were a play, we'd need three actors. The first leg, a care recipient, someone who is ill, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And as we know, when we get ill in one area, we are sick in each of the areas. So it is very much the first leg, the care recipient. The second leg is the professional caregiver, the doctors, the nurses, the therapists. From the highest paid, these are also the clergy who come in here. These are counselors, these are psychiatrists, and they are also from the highest paid doctor to the very underpaid healthcare home attendant. But each of them being paid is a professional caregiver. The third leg is that to which I have devoted my life and ministry, and that is you and me, by and large, the unpaid family caregiver. And so it is these three legs that make up the healthcare system. And each of the leg needs to interact with the other. And we're going to see that as we continue our conversation. But the stool itself, healthcare, needs three legs in order to stand firm and tall. That third leg makes a huge difference. Much focus has, as Dr. Flemister said to me, much focus has been put upon the care recipient, and that would be disease, it would be all the sorts of things that go into what's wrong, what's happening, what was the history, all of that sort of thing for the patient, for the care recipient. Much has gone into research in the professional caregivers, and the researchers are part of it. The healthcare professionals are all part of it. The insurance companies, all of these people who are part of the drama of healthcare are the professionals. And so we see a lot of focus on that, and it's important. But healthcare itself cannot stand without that third leg. And it's the reason wherever in the world I go, I begin every speech I give by saying the two words that family caregivers rarely, if ever, hear. And so I say it to you today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are the backbone of the healthcare systems of the world. And I have been privileged to see that in action again and again and again. In Europe, in Africa, in Asia, South America, in America. Family caregivers, you are the backbone because you are the most informed about the care recipient. So now let's talk about caregiver. We are caregivers. We are not cure givers. And it's very important for us to understand those two words and where they fit in the drama of healthcare. To care is to accept something just as it is. Caring is being present just where things are. And those of you who are clergy, those of you who are um, psychologists or therapists or people who are social workers, you know as well as I do, we can never help anyone unless we are present for where they are at this moment. Now, that's not going to stay, we hope, but we're going to be able to be part of a progressive change. But we are dealing as caregivers by accepting the circumstances right where they are, neither saying good, neither saying bad, saying this is the reality of the moment. And we're going to learn as much as we can about that. And we're going to be present. When I say this, it reminds me of something that many of you have heard me say again and again. One of my favorite quotes is from Ram Dass when he says, "What are we doing? What is our purpose here in life? We're walking each other home." And that means we meet today in a relationship, care recipient, caregiver, each accepting that role and understanding where it is today. Now, there is no question that within that understanding, we need to know that there is some sort of diagnosis that has been given, that there is some diagnosis that is being considered, perhaps. It may not be the final one, but we're part of helping in that resolution. But that part, the curing, is the medical professionals' world. That's not our world. It's our world to understand. It's our world to support. It's our world to be an intelligent consumer, as it were. But it is they who drive the cure. And there's a wonderful definition from this wonderful card, which I'll speak of a little bit later. Curing is changing what is. Caring is accepting what is and being present for it. So it's extremely important that we understand our relationship. Now, yesterday, as I was speaking to the center at the Peconic Bay Medical Center, the caregiving center, this was one of the great things of having a caregiving center in the middle of a hospital, because it allows the caregiver to learn a great deal more about whatever the disease or the diagnosis might be. And it helps to take away from one of the things that we all do is run home and Google a disease. And I don't know about you, but I can Google any disease and end up saying, I must have that. It's just the human nature. Now, there's not anything wrong in reading. There's not anything in about learning. But we need to look at text without context is pretext. There's no question about that. And we need to look at the source. And it's one of the reasons that support groups that are specific to heart, diabetes, cancer are so important, because they have all of the latest academic research and progress. And we can learn a great deal. But that still is not ours to diagnose or to do or to second guess. We want to learn about it, but ours are many other relationships. Ours is helping the professional to know more about the care recipient. What is their belief system? How does their faith or lack of faith play into decisions that they make and have made? It is always about informing. We're not making judgments, and we never want to get into, oh, he should have, he could have, would have. No. Today is where we are. It is the culmination of a lifestyle and decisions made. Those aren't changeable at this moment. But with proper cure and medical attention, many things can change and can change much for the better. Our role is to walk without judgment, but with love. And I can't stress that enough. And that's often what makes it so very difficult. And therefore, caregivers, whom I love, I'm one of them, I want to spend just a moment on our role as the caregiver. We are looking at the care recipient. Yes, we are there to be present. We are there to attend to needs. But there is only one rule in family caregiving, and you've heard me speak on this many, many times. Today, I'm going to do it in a little different form. But the rule remains the same. Before I can care for you, I have got to care for myself. I can't give away what I don't have. If I'm falling apart, if I'm totally exhausted, if I'm emotionally spent, if I'm living in fear, I can't be of help. And so there are a couple of things that I have found extremely, there are four of them, that I want to share with you. And I want to share them with you because they've been very helpful to me. All of my work has been very much in a practical mode. I have been a caregiver for our late son in Bali, who now it's been nearly 19 years since he died, but we were blessed to have him in our lives for 20 years. And then bone cancer very quickly and horribly took him from Joe, my late husband, and me. And then Joe's illness came, and then my father's illness, and my mother. So it's been many, and I'm in a caregiving situation present. So these are things that have helped me, and I just pray that they'll help you. One of the things that I have learned, and I continue to do, and I did it today, and I'm doing it today because I'm in the process of doing something, is bookending. Now, what do I mean by bookend? When Joe was nearing the end and he was very fragile and he was very much afraid to be alone, I would get up in the morning while he was still sleeping and I would come in here. Right behind me is what I call my prayer chair. Now, you may not choose to pray, or you may have certain prayers you do like. This is not a theological or religious discussion, but you may like to meditate. There may be something that you particularly like to read that is uplifting. Or you may just come in and do 10 deep breaths very slowly and quietly. Because what does it do? It settles us. And then we would go about the day. And then at night, I would get him ready for bed. And then I would say, Joe, I'll be back in shortly. I'm just going to, and he understood, I'm going to have just a little prayer time. And he knew I was praying for him and sending love to a lot of other people for whom we were both praying because we did and were a family that prays. And prayer can be of any type. It can be formal. It can be just your speaking. It can be a mantra. It can be a single word. God, Yahweh, Allah, just repeated slowly. Because what does it do? It takes us from the ego and the mind to the soul, that which is in each and every one of us. We may use different words for it, but in creation, a spark of the divine was placed in each and every one of us. And that spark is there to be with us and to help us. It's not waiting for an invitation to come in, it's already there. It's waiting for us to access that strength and know that we are not alone and we don't have to do it alone. Because in many faith traditions, we know we were promised nothing would be given to us for which the strength to overcome it would not also be given to us. But we need to find where that strength is. And it's in our heart, not in our mind. It's a heart message, waiting to be accessed and waiting for each and every one of us. Don't get hung up on nouns. If you're someone who's been wounded by somebody else's religion, bless it and give it back to them, and you start again. If you're lucky enough to be in the 12 steps, HP, a higher power, whatever it might be, but that which supports and strengthens you to know that you are not in charge. And oh, what a relief that is. But I can be a caregiver and become the eyes, the ears, the love of the divine, however you define that word. Number 2, this is one I love. I don't know about you, but there are mornings when I can wake up and the committees are going and it's blah, 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 and I can try breathing and try different things. But this is one of the favorite techniques that I was taught long ago, and I pass it on to you. When that's happening and I'm more awake than I want to be, I place my hand on my heart because a lot of negative thoughts are going on up here. And I just take some breaths. What is that? It's a heartbeat. That is purpose. Purpose. I am here for a reason. And I tell myself, don't quit. Onward, onward. And I say thank you. Give it a try. You might be amazed. And then one of my favorite things is to get up and to shave and to get into the shower. That's my favorite form of meditation. Now, I have many, many people. I've taught many classes on meditation. And there are as many different meditations as there are human beings. But I love nothing more than getting under the shower and just letting the water pour down. And with it, I let it take every reality, every responsibility, and just washed it away. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, at least for a moment. I'm free, I'm free. And how refreshing that is. That's a shower meditation. And having done that, I'm rejuvenated. Yes, I can. I can be of service. I'm refreshed. I've cleared my cache, as it were. I'm free to serve. Another meditation, a fourth one, that I love to suggest to people, and it really is so simple. In the course of a day as a caregiver, I need to often go somewhere. I need to walk somewhere. I'm in New York. So I walk to the drugstore. I walk to the grocery store. I walk to this store or that store. But while I'm walking, I have a wonderful opportunity to meditate, knowing that whatever the situation is that I'm dealing with, that I will be stronger, more creative, and more receptive to possibilities when I clear my mind. And so I may take a simple word, a simple phrase. I can do all things through him who strengthens. Or simply peace, peace, peace. Or thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I do that, my body slows down. My emotions go from my head back to my heart, renewed and strengthened. And I can do that as many times as I need during the day. because there's always a moment in which I can remind myself there's a purpose. I can remember the shower, and I can find a mantra or a word that is powerful and needed in my life. And I can just dwell on it. And the best one that I know of is thank you, thank you, thank you. So those are 4 items that I urge each of you to consider as you are doing the world of caregiving, remaining in whatever is present for today. And I want to conclude by talking about that caregiver journey. I have often spoken about the labyrinth. Now, we at the Marble Collegiate Church, where I've had the privilege, I'm now retired, but I've had the privilege of serving there for many years. And we have a beautiful, beautiful labyrinth downstairs in the labyrinth room. And I love to be invited to speak there. And my favorite spot to stand would be right in the center of the labyrinth. Because what is the labyrinth? It's a microcosm of our life's journey. Because what we do with our caregiver, not perhaps physically, but this is what's happening. We walk into the labyrinth. We've accepted a diagnosis. We're learning about it, and we're moving forward, and things seem to be okay. We're getting this. Yeah, we're oh, and then suddenly something happens, the boomerang effect. And then we're going back this way into the new reality. And yes, we can do this. We're doing it. Hey, ooh, another challenge. And we turn and we walk this way in the labyrinth. And so it continues with moments of great joy, moments where we think, yes, we've got it, we're winning. And in some cases, we are grateful that the curing portion has taken hold and we're able to walk back out into life. But in many cases, we continue the labyrinth. That was true for me with my son, our son, and certainly with Joe when he died right here in my arms. I had been able to walk with him through the labyrinth, and oh mercy, there were many, many back and forths. There were high spots and certainly low spots. But I was able to walk with him all the way to the center. And in that center, I was able to place his hand into the God of his understanding. To have a moment of thanks, of prayer, and of surrender. And then I needed to begin the journey back out. And I needed to use everything I had learned as a caregiver. Everything I had learned about sharing love, about caring, about not getting stuck in the what ifs and oh, this and that, and the whys, the why, the why. Most of the whys can't be answered. It's what can I learn from this? Well, I learned about a faith journey. I learned that love never ends. And I learned that I could care beyond anything I ever thought. And so I needed to keep walking out, not questioning the why, but being grateful for what I had learned. What I had learned about Joe. What I had learned about his life that I never knew before. And finally to realize I had been part of a story, but I never knew how the story was supposed to go. So, in his life and every life that I've been blessed to be part of, it was not wrong. I didn't know how the story was supposed to go. Spiritually speaking, everything was happening as it was supposed to. I wasn't in charge. My loved one wasn't in charge. But we together were walking through this thing called life. I then surrendered, and as I walked back out, I began to have a great sense of gratitude and love for having the joy of walking Joe home and walking Putra, walking others home. That's what caregiving is all about. And we're blessed to have that opportunity. So I want to thank you for inviting me to be with you at the Peconic Bay Medical Center and for the opportunity of taping the remarks that I made yesterday. These are a bit of a variation because, as you well know, I don't speak from a script. I choose to speak from the heart. And as we always say, onward in love and caregiving. Namaste. God bless. And I look forward to seeing you. And I urge you to follow me on Facebook, Gregory Johnson, and on YouTube, Family Caregiving with the Rev. There are now over 700 tapes, I can't believe that, of which this will be one, available to you free of charge. Thank you, and God bless.